Welcome everyone to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center, sponsored by Fieldstone Memory Care Bainbridge Island. Fieldstone offers innovative and compassionate care, now accepting residents. They also offer day stay and respite programs. Call 360-689-4314 to schedule a tour of Fieldstone's beautifully appointed apartments on Rolling Bay. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge that the Senior Community Center is on the ancestral homeland of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Suquamish people, the people of the clear salt water, and we honor them. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Katie Auger. I am the Community Resource Navigator for the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. And it is my absolute pleasure to have with us today Jeannette Franks. Jeannette is a PhD and a passionate gerontologist. She's been in this field for 25 years, over 25 years, and has taught ethics, grief and loss courses on geriatrics and gerontology for the University of Washington. She received her PhD, MA, and BA from UW. Franks has also published books, including To Move or to Stay Put, A Guide for Your Last Decades, as well as Washington Retirement Communities. And Jeannette, you are currently working on a book, is that correct?
It is, yes.
Perfect. Do you want to just take a moment to tell us about that? And then we have all sorts of things to discuss today, so I'm going to let you take the mic.
Okay, thank you, Katie. What I primarily want to talk about are resources. And I want to ask you, this isn't a rhetorical question. I really want you to be brave and unmute yourself and answer. In the past 2.5 years during COVID, what have been the most useful resources for you? So welcome and think about it. And you can just, wave your hand, or if you don't want to be on camera, you can go to the little line below where you can raise your hand under reactions. You can raise your hand. So I think this is an important question. What resources or a special resource have been really helpful to you during COVID? Sheila.
Well, basically, there's something to talk about here at the Senior Center, which gave me the opportunity to learn about all the different things that are happening in the community. IVC would be the other one that was of help to me as well. Those were the two in particular that were just right there, always there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sheila. How many people, and raise your hand either physically or with the reactions, have used IVC during COVID, Island Volunteer Caregivers? How many are volunteers for IVC? So if you're mobile and driving, that's certainly an opportunity. Also, the Senior Center, how many people have actually been to the Senior Center in the past 2.5 years or used one of their resources? Yeah, thank you for raising your hand. I think we have a absolutely very well run Senior Center, and actually participating in these. This is a Senior Center service, so you should have all raised your hands, really. I think what's also important is what resources have you wished you have had during this crucial time? So could you please participate and raise your hand and speak if you think there's something you wished you could have had, but you couldn't find it?
And just as a reminder for folks that you are muted, so if you do want to participate, you can click on the little mute icon at the bottom left hand of your screen.
Yeah, you can unmute yourself. It's not up to me. So you had everything you needed in the past 2.5 years?
So Jeannette, this isn't a personal need, but something that I see a lot from folks that I work with, and that is access to caregivers.
Exactly.
I think that's been a huge thing. And I imagine even if personally, this may not have been something you're lacking, I imagine you probably have a friend, a neighbor, someone that you know in the community that may have ran into this. So that's something that I'm noticing, Jeannette, as a gap that we're experiencing.
Yeah, absolutely. To have at-home care, and even for children, having daycare for children or having babysitters, but also having in-home care is very challenging on Bainbridge Island. So many of the workers, whether they're freelance or working for an agency, they're driving from Bremerton. How long does it take you to drive from Port Orchard, Katie?
When traffic is in my favor, it's an hour to get here. It can be much longer, but traffic's lightened a bit since the pandemic. But yeah, it's a trek, and I think you make a great point, because folks who are traveling from Bremerton or other parts of the county, that can certainly be a barrier that prevents access to caregivers on Bainbridge.
Yeah, it is, and of course the lack of affordable housing is a real problem. So people who, I mean, even people with fairly decent jobs like the fire department or teachers can't find affordable housing on Bainbridge. And at some point in all our lives, we need caregivers. There's no question about that. And at some point in all our lives, we are caregivers. And so having available, affordable, reasonable, well-trained, well-compensated caregivers is a huge challenge. I just recently had major surgery. And I have to tell you, the people that really, really helped me were my wonderful neighbors and my dear friends. It was not family. I mean, my family was peripherally there, but they aren't in the immediate area. And they're my age. And so it was a real challenge. I found out at the beginning of April that I had endometrial cancer. And I had already spent money and made these elaborate plans to travel to Italy. And I talked to the oncologist. And of course, you can't get surgery the next day anyway. It doesn't work that way. So we scheduled the surgery. And what I did was I went ahead and went to Italy, and I came back a week early to be on time for my surgery. And I'm very, very pleased to announce that I am 100% cancer-free. It's gone. It had not metastasized. So that was very exciting, but it was also a real lesson for me how interdependent we are. You know, Reid kind of billed this as being independent. It's not about being independent. It's about being interdependent and being there for your friends and family and neighbors, and for your friends and family and neighbors to be here for you. And so I had someone coordinate walking the dog. I had people, I couldn't even stop them. I had so much food. It was, you know, I just spent the night in the hospital. It wasn't that big a deal. But then I was, you know, compromised for at least a week after. And now I still, for another month, cannot lift more than 5 pounds, which when you stop and think about it, it's amazing how much you lift every day that weighs more than 5 pounds. And I think we all recognize it's very difficult to ask for help. It really is. And I think almost everybody who participates in senior center activities or IVC, they are more of a helper than a person who asks for help. And I think learning to ask appropriately for help is really, really important, and to make it easy for people to ask for help from you. So for example, you don't just say, oh, let me know if I can do something to help. What's really helpful is, I'm going to the store, can I pick up groceries? Or I love your dog, can I walk your dog? Or, you know, just to be really specific. I used to have this huge bag of dirt on my deck that I need somebody to move into the storage area, you know, things like that, that you kind of hesitate to ask, and you don't want someone to make a special trip for this little task. And to hire helpers just to do all this little stuff is really difficult. One of the things I'm in the process of doing is acquiring a handy person, because there are certain things that I shouldn't do anymore. For example, lifting or getting up on a ladder and changing a light bulb. Excuse me, that's really dumb. I live alone. I'm a widow, and that was the kind of thing, you could ask your partner. But now I'm in a situation where I have to ask a neighbor or somebody. For some of us who can afford it, it feels more comfortable to ask someone who you can pay to do all these little things, fix the vacuum cleaner and fix the toilet and things like that. And you don't want to call the plumber who's going to charge you $200. I've fixed the toilet myself in the past, and it takes $12 and a few hours, and it's not rocket science, but I just don't want to do it anymore. I can't do all that twisting, and the toilets have gotten more complicated. So I think that that's a really important resource to try and have in your repertoire of resources. Another thing that's very hard for especially most women to admit is, if you can possibly afford it, have someone that comes to clean like once a month or whatever, so that then when you're getting out of the hospital with your new hip and you cannot possibly do it, you already have a relationship with someone you trust and you know what they're willing to do and that you can afford it. And it's not easy. There are not a lot of people that are cleaning houses. It's not a fun task. And a lot of women think, oh, well, they wouldn't do it as well as I would. Well, maybe not. But if you can possibly set up an arrangement just to have that before you desperately need it is really useful. It really is. We're getting together the resource fair, and you wouldn't believe the list of people we have coming, but I want to ask this group, who do you think should be at our resource fair on, I'm getting a pencil, Saturday, September 24th at the Senior Center? How many, raise your hand if you went to the resource fair last year? And so I'm going to ask Dawn, what did you think? What was the best thing there?
The best thing was that I made the decision after talking to one of the representatives there to move into Winslow Manor.
Ah.
The product of that discussion and seeing her there, it prompted me to do that. And I'm so glad I made that decision. I still consider it independent living. You may know what Winslow Manor is, and there's not a lot of personal support available, but there is some, there are meals 5 days a week that I can take advantage of. And there are various activities that the residents themselves organize. I, in fact, organized one for tomorrow. I'm a part of the Evergreen Singers at the Senior Center, and we're going to be performing for Winslow Manor tomorrow.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And I do think that the different retirement communities, if you can afford them, are a wonderful way of having a certain economy of scale. You don't have to pay someone to clean. It's much more economical to have them come and clean a whole group of places, to have congregate meals. I think all those things are really, really important. And group living is hard for some people and easy for other people. Condo living has worked out well for me, but you do sacrifice a certain amount of privacy. You do sacrifice a certain amount of decision-making, depending on how democratic your community is. Well, thank you. Thank you for that, Dawn. What else? What else from other people? Well, Sheila, what did you think was the best thing at the, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Francis.
No, I'm on a different topic. Go ahead. I want to hear about the senior resource. That's fine. I was going to ask something else. I'll ask it later.
Well, we can talk forever about retirement housing. I have been in literally hundreds of retirement communities in Washington State, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So it's a hot topic in many ways. Sheila, what were you going to say?
As far as the resource fair from last year, well, the community with the beer was great fun. I don't drink, but at the same time, it was great fun to have the people all sit around and have a good time talking with each other. The library folk who were there were extremely helpful, even though they were stuck off in the middle of nowhere. But those people that I talked to who actually found them to be great. I had a great time talking with both of them. It also was fun that the BEMA had a person there to do some craft work, and that was fun. You know, that's different. You know, I expected to have the people from the different organizations and so on and so forth. That was true, but over and above that was the gal from the was a BEMA person. So, which I thought was great fun. I hope we do that again this year.
Yeah, and we're, I think, going to really look at making sure people understand the floor plan, because it was a little complicated. Some were indoors, some were outdoors, some were in the conference room, somewhere in the library, you know, and so I think that's important. But Annika with the Bainbridge Island Museum of Art does a splendid job, and it's very participatory, and we wanted to make it fun. I mean, Reed had the brilliant idea, like we were pondering, how can we make a resource fair fun? And he said, well, how about serving beer? So we did. Bainbridge Brewers donated, and I'll ask them if they'll donate again. And we charged $1 because you're not allowed to give away free beer. So I do believe we're going to do that again this year. And then having the art project. I think there are different things that are really fun, and we'll do some of the same other presenters like Kitsap. Now they're changing the Orca system, so this would be a chance to get a new card or to find out how the new system's working. We're having the fire department, which we didn't have last year, but there's a lot of emergency planning and preparation going on in the community, so that's a chance to do that. And then Katie, we were going to have free masks and free COVID tests, is that right?
I believe that is our plan, yes. Yeah, we'll have those available to folks at the event as well.
Yeah, there's a huge list of resources. The Housing Resources Bainbridge has a new independent living person, and we're going to meet her tomorrow.
And in fact, she's joined us on this call, Jeannette.
Missy, please say a few words about what you're doing and what questions you might have for us. Great. Thank you for participating.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, hello. Yes, I got the fabulous email and I was like, oh, I have to be on there. So yes, I'm here, and I'm going to be a part of the resource fair in September. And so yeah, any referrals you guys have, send them my way. I want to help the community as much as I can. So I'm here to help.
What has surprised you about your new job?
That's a good question. I think just everybody's just so welcoming, and it's just so wonderful. I'm so thrilled to be back in the Bainbridge community, and just being able to help all the clients and all the members of the community, and provide resources, and just you know, I get to go in their home and check it out and help them, and so it's been very welcoming and very lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, accessibility is such a big issue because so many homes, especially on Bainbridge, but this is true all over the world, are designed as if you'll never grow old. Mm-hmm. And I'm not Peter Pan. I don't know about the rest of you, but I think having a barrier-free home is really important. Yes. And sometimes that's a very good reason to move to a retirement community, because they're usually at least more accessible. Mm-hmm. And anytime you can have an elevator and a home where your master bedroom and master bath are on the ground floor and barrier free, that is so important. I always lecture that the bathroom's the most dangerous room in the house, because it's true. Statistically, that's where the most accidents occur. Right. And you want to make everything accessible before you fall down and break your hip, because it's much more difficult to plan these things when you're in the hospital, for sure.
Yeah.
So what else would you like to see at the resource fair? What would make it either more fun or more useful for any of you? And I'm going to go around the screen, so everybody has to think of at least one thing. So I'm going to start with Frances. Okay, Frances, what would be most useful?
Well, I'm not sure about, a little confused about what the resource fair is. I'm hearing kind of mixed messages, but from my own personal point of view, what I would like to know is if anybody is aware of physicians who are geriatric specialists. I did some research, and trying to find a doctor who at least had some interest in geriatric patients, because as I've gotten older, I feel as though I am more and more often dismissed as, oh, you're just getting old. In fact, I had one doctor tell me, well, you've already outlived your life expectancy. And
what mean?
Yeah, I mean, that.
Good grief.
And I talked to my friends. I turned 86 this week. And I talked to my friends, most of whom are younger. Unfortunately, I've lost a lot in the last 3 years. And they say the same thing, that they feel more and more invisible or discounted when they visit the doctor. So in searching for a doctor that would have interest in geriatrics, at least some interest in geriatrics, I found 3, and they were all in King County. I found none in Kitsap County. The other thing I'd like to comment on in terms of housing, I retired from the Seattle Times, and we had a program, a fund for the needy, where we chose certain nonprofits to benefit from the contributions. And one of them was Senior Services in Seattle. And they hooked up people, seniors, who were living at home, had extra bedroom or whatever. They hooked up seniors to share housing, but not necessarily seniors and seniors, but seniors with maybe a student at the University of Washington who could do some odd jobs and everything, but they got free board. And knowing seniors, very often free food because they had somebody to cook for, and they liked it. So I don't know if there's any that kind of program over in Kitsap County, but I would like to see some information about what's available.
Yeah, thank you, Frances. You bring up several very important questions. Katie, you had your hand up.
Yeah, well, I was just unless Jeanette, you wanted to respond, I was just going to mention about the home share program, that concept and updates on Kitsap. Is that okay if I?
Of course, please.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so Frances, that's a great question. And yes, so there have been programs like that here in the past. Fishline had housed the home share program, which was exactly that, where they offered a program and support to help individuals who had extra housing available be matched with an appropriate match of somebody in the community who was looking for housing, and whether that was an older adult or a student or a family. Unfortunately, that program did go away in Kitsap. It's no longer housed with Fishline, unfortunately. I do know it exists in other counties, but I think something like that in Kitsap, it would be a great program to have again, because housing is such an issue here. So I'm glad you bring that up. And unfortunately, currently, there's no official program running in Kitsap.
Yeah, thank you, Katie, and thank you, Frances. Happy birthday. And I think you bring up the topic of ageism, which we don't necessarily recognize it as such, although I believe Ann Lovejoy spoke on this last week, because there is a stigma, there is a bias, a prejudice against aging and older people, which I think is just as shocking as racism or homophobia or sexism. And it's prejudging people and putting a whole group of people into one bucket. I've had students when I was teaching say, oh, I just love old people, they're so sweet. Or I don't like old people, they're so crabby. Excuse me, but everybody is sweet and crabby, sometimes in the same 5 minutes. And teenagers can be really sweet or really crabby. And as we mature, we become more and more variable over time. So anytime you generalize about a category, but especially older people, you are going to be wrong. And finding physicians who understand that and care about that is not easy. Sundance Rogers is very good, but I know she's not accepting new patients. She's a family doctor. Does anybody else know of any physicians that either focus on older people or at least don't dismiss them, which I know happens really commonly. Anybody, any recommendations? Sheila?
I don't know if Annie Chun is taking new patients. I have no idea. She's with Kaiser Permanente, and she's my doctor, and she's fantastic. And yes, sometimes she will say, "Yeah, Sheila, you're 85, you know." She will say that with this grin on her face, as much as say, "We know Sheila at 85 is like a 25-year-old anyway." So, yeah,
No.
she's marvelous. So, but she's up at Polsbo at the Kaiser Permanente group up there.
Thank you. My Dr. Rogers, she saved my life. I was just my annual wellness check that she picked up on this, and she was very probing. Has anything changed? Is anything different? Blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, boom, I was getting a biopsy, and, boom, I was getting a hysterectomy, and it saved my life. I'm cancer free because it was caught and diagnosed and treated very early. And so I'm not sure how to answer your question except to keep looking and let everybody else know. But also, when you find someone that is at least convenient and in your insurance plan, you can teach them. You're the expert, and you can say, you are being racist or ageist or sexist to me just because I'm old and female, and you are in the wrong, and let's talk about this, and they don't allow a lot of time. When you schedule an appointment, you can say, well, I need more time. Let's schedule a longer appointment. You really in these days have to be an advocate for your own healthcare, and it's not a skill that or a knowledge base that not everyone comes with. So we need to work on this. What did you do at the Seattle Times, Frances?
Oh, I started out as a writer, and then I ended up the last 20 years as community relations manager.
Well, you might want to see about helping us with our newsletter. I know it's a lot of work, and a lot of people put time in it. And the woman who was the editor forever has some health compromises now. So that would be great. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Frances. I'm going to ask Marcy. And this is arbitrary. I'm just looking at my screen. So tell us what's been useful or useless for you lately.
Well, it's very interesting. Recently, one of the talks recently had made me realize how much I knew already because of Jeannette Franks and all of the time that she's trained us over the years. I've done everything I'm supposed to do because she told us how to do it. So I'm ready to go. I'll start over again. But the thing that's really bothering me right now is we've got 3 low-income projects on the books right now, and not one of them is accessible. And there was a big discussion at the new one that HRB is doing on right here on Eckel, right past Helpline, and they had a big discussion about elevators, and elevators are too expensive. They're too expensive to build, and they're too expensive to maintain. So there will be a non-accessible building. They're putting a 3rd floor on it, and it's not accessible. And there's nothing being built by us over on Madison that's accessible. Even from the garage, there's a step out from between the garage and the house. You can't get into any place with something with wheels on it. So that's my major worry right now is I have a non-accessible house. But I was interested in what HRB is actually doing with community help. I was just very interested to discover that I'm actually low income because you don't look at assets, you look at income. And I discovered I could actually qualify for help. And it never occurred to me to even think about it. So that's my take on where we're going.
Thank you for saying that. And I think that there are a number of things that we can be more proactive about, including City Council and regulations. If you look, for example, at Bainbridge Island, and probably more, but at least 15% of the population is 65 and older. So
Yeah.
they should make 15% at
Absolutely.
least of low-income housing accessible, and even regular housing, you know, like in the Netherlands. It's a rule, if you build 100 condos or apartments, that a certain percentage have to be accessible. So that's one source, or one resource. The other thing that the Senior Center is talking about getting more involved in is called Livable Communities. The AARP has a number of booklets out and a way to assess your community for walkability, for livability. So that's something that we're just sort of keep trying to move it forward, and nobody has taken the ball and run. Maybe Misty, that would be great. Because some of these projects, it's almost like having a whole new full-time job and nobody's paying you for it. So yeah, Misty, have you read any of the AARP stuff on livable communities?
I have a lot of documentation available, and Marcy, I would like to talk to you some more. If you're interested, you know, I don't like to have the pressure approach, but I would love to talk to you more, and even just, you know, come see what we can do. So definitely reach out, and I can always research information. So things, you know, a lot of times I find that just stuff on the internet and stuff that we see can be scary, and just having somebody else to assist you with locating things that you think might be helpful, or just finding better ways around things. I'm totally happy to do that and want to help. So definitely give me a call.
Okay, and be sure and tell Fedra she needs to think accessibility.
Yes, she and I are going to have a conversation. So I will see what I can do.
Okay, thank you both of you. And Misty, what have been the most challenging issues that have come up? Like, how could you make some of the low-income housing more accessible? Is there a fund like Rotary or somebody to fund an elevator? Sure, they're expensive, but I think that they're a really, really good investment.
Sure, of course. And yeah, like I said, I being, you know, as you all know, that I'm fairly new to HRB, and so I come from a different sort of background. But with these new developments, I don't have a lot of the background yet, but I will be reaching out to Phaedra and having a conversation about what can be done for sure. So
one of the things we're going to have at the resource fair is there are 2 new all-terrain wheelchairs that can be borrowed for, like, if you are a wheelchair user and you want to take your grandkids to the beach. I mean, I think that'll be fun, and it'll be there in a demonstration. I don't know if we can just get in and ride around, but that'll be fun.
I would like to go back to what you were saying earlier, Jeannette, about having a resource center of handy folks that we could call, because I am in the same situation where there are just little things around the house that you wouldn't hire somebody to, you know, it's not a big project, but there are just little things that need to be done that I'm not able to do for myself. And I'd love to have some good referrals on that.
Thank you. You know, I was just thinking, Barn, we have this huge organization, and they'll build things for you even. And I forget, Katie, is Barn coming to the resource fair? They were there last year, I believe.
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe we have them on our list, but I'm going to make note of that right now to make sure we've added them in case they haven't gotten an invitation for this year.
Yeah, please do. And I understand they have a new director, and I knew Denise, but I don't know the new person. Maybe that's somebody we should invite to resource committee next month. But yeah, Katie, if you would reach out and see if they would consider, or they may even already have an a way of doing this, because you can request things to be built, even like a bench or a handrail or a ramp. My understanding is you have to pay for materials, but they have a lot of skilled workmen and they've got all these tools. It's like workshop heaven. So that's a good idea. Let's get Barn more involved, because I think there are a lot of people, especially in our cohort, that could use a handy person. So that's a good one. Thank you, Linnea. What else? What else?
That would be a gift. So I haven't thought beyond that, actually.
Jeanette, could I make a quick comment about just a couple of possible ideas? Thank you. Yeah, Linnea, you bring up a great one. This is something that I know we hear a lot of in the community as a lacking as a resource. I wish there was like the perfect answer to this, but I do know of a couple other possible alternatives. They may or may not fit the bill for everyone. I know through the HRB Independent Living Program, there are some, if it's related to fall prevention and home safety, there are some modifications that they're able to do through that program. So I won't go into all of that right now, but that would be something that you might want to consider looking into. So having a grab bar added, even bathroom modifications. But again, something you'll want to talk to Independent Living about. There's also Bainbridge Youth Services has started a jobs board where folks, if you have a small project that you think would maybe be an appropriate fit for a high schooler or a young person to work on. So again, maybe not if you're needing, a toilet replaced, this may not be a good fit, but if you're maybe looking for someone that can do a bit of yard work, or maybe some minor, moving some things around in your home, you can always go to the BYS website. And then I will just really quickly lastly add, we are, the Senior Center and also Island Volunteer Caregivers, we're exploring the possibility of having what is called a PIPS page, a private in-home provider. This is not anything that currently exists, but just something to be, keep an ear out for, and something that we're working on. Sorry, I'm just gonna get there. So anyway, something just to keep an eye out for in the future, where we might be able to find a way for, contractors or handy people to be able to post their listings that would be available to us. So, okay.
That sounds great.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah.
Did you get all that?
Yes.
Good. And I think that we are including Bainbridge Youth Services in the resource fair, correct?
Yes, I believe they've also been invited, but I'll double check that. Yeah. Thanks, Jeanette.
Well, and for people who have never been to it before, basically we set up tables, information tables inside and outside. And so things like the long-term care ombudsman and SHIBA. Okay, raise your hand if you know what SHIBA stands for. Statewide Health Insurance Benefits Advisors. And Helpline House has some, but we also have some new SHIBA volunteers. Katie, I'm blocking on who's got the new SHIBA people. Who is it?
Yeah, Peninsula Community Health Services has the contract for SHIBA, so folks can access advocates through their organization. And then on Bainbridge Island, Helpline House now has 2 trained SHIBA folks that people can contact through them as well. And we do have presentations happening throughout the year at the Senior Center. So just something to keep an eye out for if people are interested in attending one of those programs.
Absolutely. And thank you. I know that attending in-person events still has a certain amount of risk. And I want to say that the Senior Center has been very vigilant. Everybody at some point has to prove vaccination, and then you have your little key fob, your little barcode, just like your library card now, that when you check in, then they know you've been vaccinated, and people do mask indoors. And so it is as safe as can be. And I think that they have been very conscientious in minimizing the risk of COVID, and having a proper K95 mask, having a really proper fitting mask, and once you get used to it, they aren't uncomfortable, and bending it just so it fits, so it doesn't fog up your glasses. And, you know, there's all these little tricks that once you get used to it, it really is a major protection. So having both vaccinations and both boosters, being masked and being around other people who are masked and vaccinated and boosted, that's kind of the protocol now for avoiding getting sick. And in older people, of course, it is life-threatening. My brother got COVID and he's been paranoid. He and his wife have been extremely vigilant, but they went to San Milano for their wedding anniversary and he got COVID and she didn't. And I have to tell this story because I said, well, are you going on antivirals? He said, no, why would I do that? Well, his wife doesn't have COVID and he's quarantined in one bedroom and she's in the other bedroom and leaves his food at the door. And I said, you need to get antivirals to protect your wife. And so he did. He just called his doctor and said, well, you're in the age group, you're at risk. Yeah, you can have antivirals. So that's also something to be well aware of. If you do get COVID, that just as an older person, you qualify for antivirals, and it hadn't even occurred to him. So that's another thing we can do to protect our health during the pandemic, which is still going on. What else? Who's got other things to say or to ask or to add?
I did have one thing. When Christy said, when you did the HRB presentation, is when Jeannette had us all trained in the past, the first thing I wanted to do was take the bathtub out and put in a walk-in shower. And then I found out that in some places that is against code, because if you only have one bathroom, you have to be able to provide it with a bathtub. And I was never able to really trace that down. Has that ever come up or ever showed up in all of the point? I would really like somebody to clarify at some point to say, you do not have to worry about the building code, when you remove the bathtub from the house, the single bathtub. You may worry about selling it to somebody with a dog or a child. But so that's where I got totally stopped. So I've made it a usable bathtub, but I still have a bathtub.
Wow.
If I might just add, so there's a lot of factors, right? So for instance, if you're renting, but if you own your own home, there shouldn't be any codes that you need to worry about. It's your home and you can modify your home to fit your needs. So that's definitely something that you and I can talk about more. And again, if you do want to meet with me, then I can see what you have and we can talk about it.
Yeah, I think I'm past that now, but it was something I thought about frequently and didn't get into the conversation when you were talking about it. What you were offering was, and this was, it was when I was researching for a company and for a design that I came across somebody who had been stopped from doing it because of their building code. And I never discovered whether that applied to us, to the Kitsap area or the state of Washington or not.
Yeah, it's, again, there's a lot of factors involved. And so it could be in that particular, whoever posted that, their particular recommendations and guidelines that they had to abide by. But if you own your own home, there shouldn't be any, you should be fine.
Outside of worrying that you can't sell it because it doesn't
right.
have the
and you know what? And then that's on them. Whoever buys your home, that's on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my question. I've been waiting to say that for quite a while. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. I had no idea. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. And real quick, I would like to add, I've recently found out about this organization called Donate Kitsap, mostly because I was working with somebody and they were wanting to, take some things to Goodwill. But Donate Kitsap was started a few years ago by a high school team. And since then, it's evolving right now, but on their website and in talking with them last week, they can come into your home and do different things. So it would definitely be a good resource to check out and see. I do know for sure that they will pick up items to donate to Rotary, and they will take things to the dump. They will also take things to Goodwill for you. So it's just an option, something to call.
Yeah, thank you for that, Misty. And I'm very excited that Rotary is back on.
Yes.
I volunteer with the Green Team with Zero Waste, and it's always a wonderful learning experience because reuse, recycle, repurpose, and it's a great learning opportunity as well. And the sale itself, but it's the 3rd of July, right? When is the sale? I don't have it in front of me, but it's coming up. It's really coming up. I can send a website, and it is amazing what they can do because they've got all these experts now. I know 3 years ago when they had the last Rotary, they had a painting. It was more like a sepia tone drawing from one of the internment camps. I mean, a really important piece of art that was just donated. They don't even know who donated it, but they figured out who the artist was and when it was created. But like the electronics guys, I have this huge cardboard box full of all this electronic stuff. Much of it was my late husband. I don't know what wire goes to what, and I've already got all the electronics I need, but there might be things that other people can use. And I'm just thrilled to think I can bring this huge box to the electronics guys and they can figure it out. I just think it's brilliant. Or the vacuum guy, he's an expert on vacuums. And so you get to talk to somebody who's an expert on vacuums because they've been doing this for so many decades that people have their areas of expertise. The kitchen people, I donated my adorable electric teapot, which had stopped working. And so one of the volunteers said, "Oh, well, Jeannette, we fixed your teapot, but we sold it." So it's just amazing what they can do. It's a really big deal. And anybody can volunteer. You can just go to the website and volunteer. And so being a volunteer, you learn a lot because you have a whole week of getting all this stuff. You can't believe the amount of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Sports stuff. If you want an exercise machine, there will be 100 of them. You know, or like I'm looking for new luggage. I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to go to Rotary and look at the luggage. You know, it's just going to be a big deal because they haven't had it for so long too.
You know, I know Frances brought up a great point about just ageism and the importance of being able to advocate for oneself and just what's experienced in doctor's office. If people have ideas of topics, or you would like to have conversations or hear from experts about any sort of topic, so about, you know, advocacy in the healthcare system, we love to hear those ideas. So you can reach out at any point, call the Senior Center, you can ask for me, you can ask for Katie. I will relay that information to our resource committee. We can talk through ideas, we can come up with people to speak to us. So I really encourage folks to do that. Please do not be shy. We want to be able to provide information on topics that is of interest to people. So we're very open to that. And I know Jeannette is such a wealth of knowledge and information, and I'm hoping you'll join us again and we can always, you know, open it up to different topics. But yeah, I really want to encourage and invite folks to give us ideas and give us topics for the resource fair as well, Jeannette, right? Too, if people
Absolutely.
have ideas.
Yeah.
You know, if something clicks this evening, give us a call tomorrow and we'll get them on the list.
I belong to Kaiser, or others to say I get my healthcare through Kaiser, and they have a very active senior caucus. Whether you've ever heard of it or not, but the caucus meets once a month and they deal with difficult issues. And it might be interesting to find a representative from Kaiser who would come and talk about the fact that there is a senior caucus, and also be able to say which physicians in our area from Kaiser, like the one that someone, Sheila, I think you suggested, might be specially interested in working with us older folks.
And they have the largest database, one of the largest in the whole world, but one of the largest in the country on older people, because they've got records going back for so long. And so looking at things like falls and fractures, they were one of the participants in creating the SAIL program, the Staying Active and Independent for Life, where it's basically exercises 3 times a week that are very much focused on fall prevention. So that's a very important program, but it's research-based, database. So they've got this great database.
And that SAIL program is at the BISC at the senior center.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's also online. There's a lot of SAIL programs going on now, and also Fitness Enhance is another program that's research-based. What else, you guys? I think we should wrap it up pretty soon, but I think there's got to be one more burning question or answer. What is it? Oh, maybe we're done. Maybe we're done.
We covered it all.
Well, I don't know about that, but thank you, Katie. Thank you, all of you, for participating. And the resource fair is September 24th from 10 to 2. And there will be a lot of resources and some new ones because of this group here. So thank you.